Well, welcome back to part three of Hinduism and world religions class. Today, we're going to move on from a broader overview of religion, Hindu religion, to looking at some of the periods of the Hindu religion and the various aspects and teachings during that period. And so we'll get started on that with a overview first. Let me start with the share here. All right. This is, I took this from Winfried Cordovan from his book, Neighboring Faith, the first edition, and then added in the Karma Marga and Jhana Marga and Bhakti Marga. But basically, this is his. And basically, it's looking at three groupings of the historical teachings that make up a lot of Hinduism. And so you got the uh, breakdown, the first one, 1500 BC to 500 BC, approximately, it works. And this has to do with there's Vedas, but there's the various scriptures in there, Brahmanas, Kodamanu, and so forth, and that they are detail the practices of observing laws and rituals, and mainly this is a time period governed by the priests, and they go through their sacrificial systems and things like that. And then you have the knowledge, or what I call the philosophic period, which is Jnana Marga, and the Upanishads uh, fall into this time. And this is the practice of mystical recognition of the Atman, the soul or self, and Brahman, that overarching force, universal force, and and it has to do with how you reach that, how you reach Brahman, and things like that. So we'll be talking about that a good bit. And then the latter stages is the Bhakti Marga, or devotion, and this is tied to Bhagavad Gita, Tamil poetry, the Puranas, and this is your devotion to a god or goddesses, and there's various schools involved with that, and so even within all of this, there are going to be all kinds of variations and differences depending on which one of the writings or group of scriptures you're looking at. So that's just kind of a overview there. So you get the three paths, margas, that's for paths, and each of these paths is a way to lead you to moksha, which is release from the cycle of reincarnation. Ultimately, that is the highest goal in Hinduism, like it is in Buddhism, is to find a way to get released from this constant eternal cycle of reincarnation. And so this first way, karma marga, way of action or works. Karma has to do with your works. And this is in the Vedic period, and was highly dependent on priests. And then the Jhana Marga, the way of knowledge, and this is where you get into a lot of the yoga stuff. And this is contemplation. Like in yoga, the positions you get in, the various positions, are there to help you contemplate and use that Om sound and so forth, is the way of knowledge there. And then you got the Bhakti Marga, the way of devotion, which is more popular in southern India among the Tamil. There's this love of a god or goddess provides salvation idea, is there. So we'll be looking at each these a little bit here. We've talked about karma marga with the priesthood in the earlier periods of time. Let's move on to the way of knowledge, this more philosophic period. And it's also the period where you see a lot of the main tenets of what is considered important aspects of Hinduism. And and you get this belief system with mystical contemplation. This is kind of a reaction to the previous period of priests and rituals controlled by the priests going on. But it's moving to the person themselves instead of being reliant on the priest. This is recorded in the Upanishads. These are Vedas focused on priestly ritual, but the Upanishads seek a deeper spiritual reality beyond the priestly rituals, and so you get information related to this there. And then a part of this is the teaching on yoga. And this comes from what's called the Sankhya system. The perfect yoga pose by which desire is subdued. So part of the ritual for disciplining yourself to get detached from this world, yoga is used. And if you get the right pose and can meditate well enough, you can subdue those desires, attachments to the world. And eventually you can achieve moksha, release from the world. And so this is all being talked about in the jnana way of knowledge system. Oops. There are two philosophic schools of thought, the Sankhya and the Vedanta schools. And the Sankhya, it's a dualistic system, atheistic, but does believe in karma and, good deeds, bad deeds, and the transmigration of the soul. So the soul is, you'll see, we'll use the word Atman later, but there's no God's necessarily involved with this. It denies any beginning or a creator. There are two eternal realities, the Prakriti and the Purushas, which are both considered real. That would be matter and spirit. So there's your dualism there. But those are Western categories, then sometimes our words like matter and spirit may carry connotations that their words would not necessarily carry. So you always have to be careful about things like that. Now on the Vedanta side, literally means end of Vedas. It's a non-dualistic system, so quite the opposite of the other one. Believes in one omnipotent, all-pervading supreme essence in the universe called Brahman, and that's that universal spirit we've talked about, or like in the Star Wars, Force may be with you, and that kind of thing. The ultimate goal of Vedanta is the union of the individual self, soul, the Atman, with Brahman. And so the idea is through, meditation, separating yourself from the world and the attachments to the world, you will achieve moksha, which is the release from the cycle of reincarnation. And eventually your soul will be absorbed into Brahman if you can accomplish that. The Brahman and Atman are the only reality things, only real things in the world. All else is Maya or illusion. And this really gets weird for us Westerners when we think of things like I'm sitting at a desk right now, and I believe this desk is real and made of wood or fake wood, I'm not sure. But we say that's real. Well, no, that's Maya in Hinduism. It's illusion. The world around us is illusion, or a construct of our mind, some have said. But the only real thing out there is Brahman and the soul, Atman. And so this comes into play as we look at the cycle of reincarnation and what happens when you get released from the cycle, and what happens to the soul. So Vedanta, or Vedanic philosophy, as they say, is a search for the ultimate secret of all existence. Search for the release from the transmigration of the soul. So ultimately they want to get out of this cycle of reincarnation. And you will see this is the purpose for Theravada Buddhism that we'll do next. They have epic literature, legends of the gods and heroes in their literature. So those are all part of it. But most importantly is the ultimate reality. What's behind the changing phenomena? And that is Brahman, that pantheistic impersonal God, and Atman, the true self, or we might say soul, from our Western perspective. Brahman is the unchanging something reality. It's just this pervasive impersonal power, and you could say being, but it's same as impersonal, so it's probably shouldn't be called a being. English, sometimes it's referred to as the world soul. Gods and worship are manifestations of Brahman. So they're not gods are not really real, so they're just manifestations that point us to the ultimate reality, which is Brahman. Everything else is Maya. Besides Brahman and Atman, basically all else is Maya, or illusion. This is not probably a English word that best describes Maya. It just means that this world doesn't have a true reality in Hindu thinking. The only reality is Brahman and the Atman. So you have a scholar, Hindu scholar, said, since not by speech and not by thought, not by the eye can it be reached. How else may it be understood, but only when one says it is. And so you just accept the reality of Brahman. And so they use the word tat, the all. Brahman without attributes is the all. Tat avam asi, that art thou. It just is. Brahman just is. So key is in all of this is to transcend the world of experience, or this Maya world of experience. And so let's talk a little bit about Maya. It literally just means play. And so it's not real, it's a made up play, or play, it's a plaything. It's related to the word magic. Daily life is just magic play. Life is basically the best word I know for it is illusion, and you know. So Maya, any reality to it, it's derived from Brahman, but not reality itself within itself. And so it's, I saw it explained one time that it's like image created by a projector. You know, you go to a movie and you see this image out there of real people and things like that, but it's a created image there. It's not really real, but it's pointing to the reality behind it, the Brahma. And that may be one way. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that's one way I saw it explained. Everything we experience rationally belongs to Maya, and the feelings, emotions, thoughts, that's our general experience in the world, because nothing's real except Brahman and Atman, this true self or the soul aspect of a person. So let's talk then about Atman here. That's the reality inside a person that's not Maya. And so the Atman goes through the cycle of reincarnation. Now you're going to find this is different when you get into Theravada Buddhism, but that Atman is only other thing real besides Brahman, and eventually the idea is to get moksha so your Atman can join with Brahman eventually. So it's called the true self, and sometimes Atman is Brahman, is the message of the Upanishads, because they are the only two realities. But the idea is that they all should be one. God resides in the depth of a person. Brahman resides because the Atman is true reality. So the soul of the universe, beyond thought and distinction. So the Atman eventually, if you're released from the cycle of reincarnation, and if you can do that by your, the various ways, the different ways we've been looking at, by works, by this stuff going on with the philosophic aspect of it, knowledge, and then on to bhakti, which will be a devotion. Somehow you can get released from that cycle, and it will join the Atman will join the universal soul or Brahman. This brings us to something called the life of sannyasa, and this is has to do with reaching moksha, that release from the cycle of reincarnation. So sannyasa is a form of asceticism, which with the renunciation of the material desires and prejudices, anything to do with the experiences of life that we just talked about, emotions and so forth. So it's represented by a state of disinterest and detachment from your material life, and has the purpose of spending one's life peacefully in spiritual pursuits, or in other words, a contemplation of a goal to detach yourself from the world until you get to the point where your Atman, you're so detached that you are able to, your Atman will be released from the cycle of reincarnation, and it will be joined to Brahman. So you seek one's true identity apart from the world, that Maya aspect. And then the purpose is to attain moksha, the release from samsara, which we call reincarnation, and Maya, this world of illusion. It's if attained at death, will return the Atman to the Brahman. So it re-enters Brahman. One scholar, Hindu scholar, put it like this. To visualize. He says, well, you visualize Brahman as this huge, huge ocean, and then you get released. You have moksha, and your soul's released from the cycle of reincarnation. And it's like taking a dropper over the ocean and doing one little drop out of the dropper into that ocean, and you just get absorbed, and your soul gets absorbed into Brahman. And that's one way they explain it. And by doing that, you reach nirvana, a state of supreme bliss, because now your soul is is joined with the reality of Brahman. But remember, Brahman is an impersonal force, so you just cease to exist as a person. You're absorbed into the this power that's impersonal, but pervades everything. All right, so the Third way, the bhakti, loving attachment, the way of devotion is where we're heading now. And uh, bhakti is at the heart of most of contemporary Hinduism. It's very popular, particularly in southern India. This would be more of where the original indigenous people, the non-Aryans, live. Uh, Dravidians, they would be called also, but you hear them often today referred to as the Tamil people. Um, so it's not through impossible works or secret knowledge, the two previous ways, because it's not easily attainable that way, but through a loving relationship with the God, with a god or goddess. So they're pointing to literature that says, well, the best way and the easiest way to get out of the cycle of samsara, reincarnation, release your soul is by devotion to a god. Not to the extent you have to exclude any other god, but you can still have the beliefs. It's like henotheism. You can believe in one god or worship one god, but you still believe in the other gods. Um, Roots of bhakti are found in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna, an avatar of Vishnu, tells the heroic warrior Arjuna to attach him to him, to do his caste duty. So part of this devotion to a god or goddess, but in the process you're also doing your caste duty of being attached to that god or goddess. Well, related to this bhakti way of devotion, there are two later influential Hindu philosophers that should be noted, and we'll kind of end on this for this video. But you got Sankara, 18th century A.D. He believed that the world is totally illusion, and the only reality is Brahman. Religion was the pursuit of deliverance from the deception of this illusion. And so, but again, it's this being devoted to the religion. Then Ramanuja in the 12th century, he took a totally different tact. And so now he's saying actually the world, the absolute reality of this world. So he's really going against the grain of Hinduism, this idea of the world being an illusion. The human soul was separate from the Godhead and would relate itself to God, not by absorption, but by devotion. And so here you get the being devoted aspect, and that human self and soul be devoted to God or a goddess. And so that is really, let's see, I think that's where I was going to cut it off for today. And so we will next time be a little more, little extra stuff that we'll cover. We'll be covering things about the gods and uh, beliefs, worship, life cycle in Hinduism, and kind of in with the Hindu summary of the Hindu worldview. And that's where we'll be heading in our next one and final part of the series on Hinduism. And so I'll stop the sharing here. And so I bid you good day, and we'll pick up there next time.